अमितत्वं न हि देशिकेन्द्रं किं ते स्वरूपं किमु भावजातं हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपाकटाक्षं कुरु देव नित्यम्. O teacher of the teachers, I don't know the real essential truth about you. Neither I know the secret and the mystery of your incarnation as a human being. So, Lord, kindly have your gracious glance on me, who is devoid of any devotion. Please have your mercy all the time on me. So, dear friend, I am very pleased to be here this morning, and it is a wonderful occasion as well. This accident or incident very nicely happening. The weather is wonderful and bright, especially for us coming from Florida. It is a heaven on earth, the climate wise. And especially in Canada, if it is not too cold, then it is very nice weather. Not that I'm coming for the first time in Canada. I have been visiting Canada on account of our two different centers, both the East Coast one, Toronto, several times, and then Vancouver, even before it was recognized as an official branch of Beluma. I have been coming when it was just run by the devotees. Alongside Swami Bhaskarananji attended their summer retreat also, which they used to hold in a beautiful island here. So I have been coming to Canada, but this place is first time, the Calgary. And really this is very, very great and wonderful. And I remember this has got, and this is, as soon as I think of Calgary, I think of Swamiji's visiting through Calgary. Not for any discourse or lecture program, anything planned, just it happened. So I'm not going there, but therefore it has got a very strong connection, intellectual, emotional connection and spiritual value to us. So I am very pleased and I am thankful to the society's organizers and executive members for inviting me here, and all of you to receive me, and I am very pleased and I am thankful. So today's talk, as it has been already announced, is personality of Sri Ramakrishna. So this is what I am going to talk about for 2 consecutive mornings. Personality of Sri Ramakrishna in the West, for this part of the West, not the intellectual West which were introduced long back during the time of Swamiji's living. This time of ours, you have heard, and many of you have read also, that wonderful book authored by Christopher Isherwood, Ramakrishna and his disciples. And in that book, he mentioned about Sri Ramakrishna in a word that became famous and very well received. He said, Sri Ramakrishna's personality, it is a phenomenon, he said. It is a phenomenon. Immediately, that word captured the imagination of everybody who were talking about him, thinking about him, loving Sri Ramakrishna and following his messages and his teaching, his guidances. For them, immediately it hit the target. Isharud said that Sri Ramakrishna came on the horizon of the human civilization as a spiritual teacher, as a spiritual great one, like sun rising on the horizon. And within a very short period of time, within a few decades, the glare of that sun has already covered the whole of the earth. This is how Christopher Isherwood he felt about Sri Ramakrishna. Many of you already must be knowing that he was an atheist living in England. Gradually, he grew up as a very powerful writer, authored wonderful stories, novels, and then, on invitation from his longtime friend Gerald Hart, who was also a Englishman, who was living in America, in California, he also came to this country. This country means America. When I said this country, I feel myself American when I'm speaking. So he came to America, to California, and he was introduced to religion through Swami Prabhupada Maharaj, who since 1930 was living in Southern California. Prior to that, he was living in Northern California. In San Francisco, he, he was sent from Belmont there to become one of the assistants of Swami Prakashananji Maharaj. So there he was assistant minister for a while and then he was sent to. Anyway, so this Swami Prabhuvananji, he met the Swami and then gradually he started liking religion. Through Swami Prabhuvananda, through Sri Ramakrishna into the world of religion, he was totally unbeliever, openly, and atheist, openly. And then he became so much transformed. He was the initiated disciple eventually of Swami Prabhupada, that he authored those wonderful books, and his viewpoint and his way of presenting Sri Ramakrishna to the Western mind, that became a big appeal to the larger section of the population eventually. So this was what, because we are talking about the personality of Sri Ramakrishna. So how people looked at him, what they thought about him, how they understood what was Sri Ramakrishna, who was he. From the very earlier period of time, Sri Ramakrishna slowly gotten discovered both in the East as well as in the West by great personalities. In the East, among those who found him out and spoke about him to the larger audience, In the East, it was Keshav Chandra Sen, who was a very influential spiritual leader during the time of Sri Ramakrishna itself. By the way, it is hard to recognize the greatness during the time of the great one when he is still there. It is difficult. We can boast calling ourselves great followers of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Holy Mother, etc., etc. But our understanding is nothing. Because we have understood, because there are plenty of hundreds of books are there. And dozens of great learned teachers have come and spoken to us, explaining everything about them. And then we said, yes, I think Sri Ramakrishna was great, or Swami Vivekananda was wonderful. Well, this is nothing. We are like babies who have been taught by teachers and others, and there are so many materials still already there, and we see around us there are so many people, they are praising Sri Ramakrishna, then we also join in that bandwagon, and then we say, but during the time of their living, if someone of the stature of Keshav Chandra Sen in India, in the colonial India, where Indians were the slave class, the masters class were the rulers, English, Europeans, and that was the mentality also. Completely soaked into the society. And there, Keshav Chandra Sen was invited by the Queen in England to meet her there. And she received him with all respect and honor and dined with him at the same time. That was unheard of, unthinkable back in India. That is the time. So we have to understand. And there, this Keshav Chandra Sen, who had that kind of a greatness and a powerful influence among the religious minded people who were educated, learned, and spiritually inclined. Among them, Keshav Chandra Sen was a great personality. And he spoke of Sri Ramakrishna as someone to be followed. He is the light. And in his monthly journals, he would regularly write about him. Paramahansa of Dakshineshwar. Keshav Chandra Sen, who completely were opposed to any kind of image worship and all sorts of things practiced in Hinduism, in their ritualistic form of religious practices, etc., as superstitions and ignorance. That case of Chandra Sen, of Brahmo Samaj, the modernized Brahmo Samaj. Brahmo Samaj had the old-fashioned Brahmo Samaj and then Navavidhan Brahmo Samaj. And that Keshav Chandra Sen was among the first who recognized Sri Ramakrishna. And he spoke about him in many of his lectures. He would be talking about him and trying to emulate and follow the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna and preach it among his followers and write in the articles. Through his writings, the others in that city of Calcutta, which was the capital of India at that time, Indian colonial rule, their larger section of educated population, they learned about Sri Ramakrishna. And then they started coming. Many of them, they came because of Keshav Chandra Sen. So he was among the first who was a person who could understand Sri Ramakrishna to some extent and talk about him, about his greatness. In the West, among those who in those very earlier time started talking with words of praise to the Western society, it was Max Muller, who was into the job of translating the Vedas into English. Though he was a German scholar, but he was a professor in England and he was commissioned to do this job of translating Vedas into English, and in the process of learning more about Indology, about India, about India's religion, he discovered Sri Ramakrishna, Max Muller, and he started looking for more material about Sri Ramakrishna. And thereafter, much later, a very influential and great French scholar, Romarola, he also discovered Sri Ramakrishna in a big way, so much so that he wrote a biography on Sri Ramakrishna after Max Muller. Max Muller was much earlier period of time. And Romarola went to the extent that he declared that Sri Ramakrishna could be compared with Jesus Christ. Think of it. It is not of a modern day society and the people and the awareness of Sri Ramakrishna. It is a totally different time. And during that time, when Romarola is saying such thing, think of the audacity. He never came to India. He never. Oh, I came too close here or what? So he never came. He could not come to India, but he spoke in this language. He spoke of Sri Ramakrishna that it is comparable to spiritual greatness of Jesus Christ. And he's speaking in Europe to their audience. So we have to think of that. And he was not an ordinary person. He was already a Nobel laureate and he was a great one. He, the people will listen to what he will be saying. But way more than what they said, we have to understand what Swami Vivekananda said about Sri Ramakrishna. This Romarola and others, they received many materials through Swami. Swami Vivekananda, as you know, was very reluctant to talk about Sri Ramakrishna when he came to the West. Even when he was in the East, when he was in India, he was reluctant to talk about. He had to be pushed very hard here back in North America to open his mouth and his heart and say something about his Guru. So say something about his Guru. And back in India, his brother monks, they were very disappointed that their brother monk, who has been very well received in America, in their educated society, and they are listening to him, and he is not saying a word about Sri Ramakrishna. So they were very, very disappointed back in India. And some of them had actually expressed their disappointment. Look at Naren. He, he has become so very egotistic that after finding this newfound fame and acclaim in this Western society, that he has forgotten his guru. Think of his egotistic mindset. Brother, you should not think that this is on your own everything doing. Without your guru, you could not become a Vivekananda. I tell you, like his brother monks advised him that how could you forget your guru? Without your guru's grace and his blessings, you would not have achieved whatever you have achieved, and you have forgotten it. Then Swami Vivekananda told his brother monks and his followers back in India. In his conversations, it is there, not in writing. He said, "You know why I don't speak about Sri Ramakrishna? That I am afraid that trying to make Lord Shiva, I will make the clay image of a monkey." বেঙ্গলি ইন বেঙ্গলি শিব গড়তে বাঁদর গড়বো সেই জন্য বলতাম না ঠাকুর to people, children, they make clay images, so to try making the image of Lord Shiva, that is the goal. If it becomes something different, he says that how do I describe Sri Ramakrishna? It is not for no reason that I don't speak about Sri Ramakrishna, because he is beyond my understanding. He said then, eventually, when he gave the lecture, my master, and something, when he spoke about Sri Ramakrishna, he said, the great intellectual brilliance of Shankaracharya and the wonderful heart, universal heart and love of Sri Chaitanya, together, if you mold into one character, perhaps that might to some extent describe who Sri Ramakrishna was. He said that without knowing Sri Ramakrishna, without going through his teachings and his messages and his explanations about religion, without having the clarity through Sri Ramakrishna's messages first, you can never have the understanding of the teachings that are there in Vedas and Upanishads. He said the Vedas and Vedanta cannot be understood without going through Sri Ramakrishna. You can keep reading, you can keep thinking that you have understood, you have not understood. You have to go through Sri Ramakrishna's eyes and mind and his views first, then you have some understanding of what the Vedas and Vedantas are telling. He said that Sri Ramakrishna was the living commentary of 5,000 years of the Vedas and Upanishads and their teachings and all these things. By the way, he said 5,000 years, but Vedas and Upanishads are not 5,000 years ancient. It is way more ancient. But in his just the flow of his speech, he said like that. He said that all the spiritual disciplines and practices and intense realizations that have been gained through 5,000 years of these rishis and spiritual seekers, that has culminated in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. I think it is getting hotter. My throat is choking. He says that throughout the history of human civilization, the God has appeared in many different forms, and this God incarnated and all these avatars, and gradually more and more powerful messages and teachings and life we have found. And this present incarnation is the most powerful and purest of all. And he said that the meaning of Sri Ramakrishna, who he was, and what he said, has been only little bit understood, and in course of time, gradually it will unfold itself. This is how Swami Vivekananda he described. I said just in a brief. If you go into that lecture, My Master, you'll have a much detailed way. So this is his way of looking at Sri Ramakrishna. He said that I am nobody to talk about him. He said that in fact I wanted to write something about him. Many a time I tried and then I stopped. I said I cannot do justice to describing who Sri Ramakrishna was. I cannot explain. And then comes Swami Saradanand Maharaj. As you know, there are two biographers of Sri Ramakrishna, the most authentic ones. There are many hundreds of biographers, but most authentic and the original source for the rest of the biographers to talk about Sri Ramakrishna, there were two. One was M, who wrote the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It was a glimpse of the life of Sri Ramakrishna, a glimpse. It is one kind of biography. It is not about where he was born, who were his parents, how he grew up, etc. It is not that kind of biography. It was about a glimpse, a peep into the divine play going on there at Dakshineswar and nearby places, a peep into it, a real time show, a reality show, as they say in TV. Not scripted, nothing, it just happens. It just happens. Somebody enters through this door, someone is in there. Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, you start singing. You call Naren what he is doing, sitting there with Hajra. Why not you sing a bhajan? Naren says, I don't have anybody to accompany with tabla. How shall I sing? And Ramakrishna says, my boy, this is all that you have got here. If you can sing with this, then it is okay. Like this is a reality show. It is not that it is a scripted whole play going on, but it is a wonderful divine play going on. And the M gives you a, a glimpse of it. He opens the screen and you are watching. So it is a reality show, but it is a real time, first hand, unpolluted, undiluted, clear view of the life story of Sri Ramakrishna spanning a small period of his life. So this is one kind of a biography. Another kind of a biography was given by Swami Saradanand Maharaj. without any compromise, without failing to try the best possible ways to dig up any and every resources that were available to know about Sri Ramakrishna's life, the story of Sri Ramakrishna. He will, when I say without any compromise, means he will not just take a hearsay and add it because it is very interesting story. No, he will go to the depth of it, dig it out, and find out the truth of it. And if he is not convinced, then it is not going to be added there. It doesn't matter that Krishna was his guru. It doesn't matter. He has to go to the fact, like a very superfine historian. He was trying to write the history of the story of Ramakrishna in his own way. That is called the Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master. That is all. And now Swami Chetananji has done a very good job by rewriting it in the modern language so that it becomes easier. The older language, 100-year-old, very archaic English, compared to that, now it is easy to read English. But that Swami Sharadanandi Maharaj. And he has mentioned, he has commented in a very interesting way. He says that it is understandable that people will not understand Sri Ramakrishna. They will have a little bit of understanding according to one's own capacity, according to one's own background. They will have certain kind of understanding about Sri Ramakrishna, and they will talk about it and say that. And there is nothing wrong. It is because of the background of that person who is saying. But if somebody thinks that he has understood Sri Ramakrishna, because many people are writing articles and memoirs. Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna was not the only memoir of Sri Ramakrishna. There are others who were also writing something and publishing in the magazines those days. And some of them were writing even biography of Sri Ramakrishna. As many of you have already read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, there was a mention that Ramchandra Datta, he was authoring a biography, and there is one. So somebody mentions in front of Sri Ramakrishna, sir, Ram Babu is writing about you. He will be publishing a book. He is writing about you. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, then he will be very famous. He will be famous. Okay. So people were writing and people were uh, giving their opinion about Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Sharadanandi says, it is okay. Whoever understands him, however they have understood him, because of who they are and how much they have the clarity about all these things, they can say it is nothing wrong there. But if somebody says that he have understood everything about Sri Ramakrishna, then I feel pity from the bottom of my heart for that person. That is the most pitiable thing. If somebody says that he has understood Sri Ramakrishna fully. This is the opinion of Swami Sharadanandi about Sri Ramakrishna, who has done thorough research and who has seen Sri Ramakrishna from so nearby, and who is one of the closest follower of Sri Ramakrishna and who has received all the grace and blessings of Sri Ramakrishna, he thinks that he doesn't understand Sri Ramakrishna. He thinks that he doesn't understand. So he is not saying that he knows Sri Ramakrishna and explaining everything about him. He simply says, whatever I can preserve for the posterity about the story of Sri Ramakrishna, about the place and the time and the people, about many different things that were surrounding him, whatever is within my reach and I have to sincerely do it. And that is what he did. So this was their opinion. Swami Sharadandi said that Sri Ramakrishna was the concentrated embodiment of all the past incarnations that have happened. This is his opinion, his view, how he looks at Sri Ramakrishna. Concentrated embodiment of all the past incarnations. He describes Sri Ramakrishna as the ocean when the water is still. When the water is absolutely still, the oceans have very big waves, but sometime, once in a while, it becomes absolutely still. That ocean is limitless, illimitable for an ordinary person. One cannot cross the ocean. As far as you see, it is the same ocean, cannot be crossed and found the other side or limit of it, nor it is possible to fathom the depth of it for an ordinary human being. So his description of Sri Ramakrishna, his way of looking at Sri Ramakrishna was that Sri Ramakrishna was like this, like a ocean which is perfectly still. But in the past several decades, especially in Bengal, there have been movies made of Sri Ramakrishna, his life. There are movies. And then many people have authored about him, life story of Sri Ramakrishna or his teachings and all these things. And or some of them, they are very popular writers, very popular writers. And if people would go by, because hundreds of thousands of people, they have read those books and learned about Sri Ramakrishna because they are popular authors. I think one of them was Sanjeev Sanyal or somebody. No, Sandeep Chattopadhyay is later. Before that, there was one writer on Sri Ramakrishna's life story in a very interesting way, and that became very popular. It was not Sandeep Chattopadhyay, I think, and it became very popular, very, very popular. Before the Bengali Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the original copyright period was expired. What they call it, copyright book publishing. It expired, and many publishers, they published the gospel, and gospel became very, very widely circulated, easily accessible, cheaper also. Before that, there was a life story of Sri Ramakrishna. and there were movies and all these books, hundreds of thousands of circulation, and people read, and all over India and many different places. From there, those who are not deep into religious studies or don't have much time to go into all the interest into. For them, Sri Ramakrishna was like a very simplistic man, very devoted, very poor, helpless child of Mother Kali. he was, he, in a simplistic fashion, he is singing, he is dancing, he is very now and then going into Bhav Samadhi, and he is crying, and he is lovable, he is wonderful, he is appearing like helpless, weak kind of a personality. Sri Ramakrishna was not. He was never a helpless and weak or simplistic way you can just look at him and think, oh yeah, he's nice. No, he was not that nice. He was wonderful, but he was very strong and powerful. And a person with great authority as a person. Because when God appears in human form, then there is a personality of human personality. It has got both sides. When God appears in human form, when it is God incarnate, then it cannot be compared with a human being. For example, it has got no baggage carrying with him. All the other creatures, everybody, human being and other creatures, they are carrying baggage. We call it karma. And a portion of the karma, which we call prarabdha, that is reflected in the form of this life, this particular lifespan. In that it is reflected. This portion of the karma, this portion of the baggage, and a huge portion of the baggage is waiting for future. So that is for individual soul, for every human being. That is the story of everybody. When God appears in human body, he is not carrying any baggage. He is not carrying any baggage. Not only baggage waiting for next birth, but not even for this birth. There is no baggage. It is not on account of a karma, a bundle of karma, that this life is like this. Born here, to die there, in between this thing happening. It is not on account of some karma they are producing their fruits or effects. It is not. So it is totally separate from any individual human being. You cannot compare. There is no comparison. And there are many other ways we can go, but this is a very important area where you cannot compare a human being with a God incarnate. But at the same time, he is a perfect human being. Perfectly human being. He falls down, he breaks his arm, bone, and he is in pain, and he is asking for help, and different kinds of helps are given. Doctors are called, and he is asking others that why this happened to him, etc. He is a perfect human being. He occasionally is tired. He needs to sleep, go to sleep. He needs to eat, drink. He is hungry. Returning back in a horse-driven carriage from Calcutta in the evening time, suddenly he is very thirsty. There was no bottled water those days. that they were carrying. So they had to stop the carriage, and they were passing through the neighborhood where all the Europeans were living. And there was somebody went to request for a glass of water, and a glass of water was brought for him. And he inquired if it was washed glass or what. And they said, yes, sir, it was washed. Then he drank from that glass of some water. He was, he was thirsty. Now, God cannot be thirsty. He was thirsty. So when he is in the human body, he is absolutely. It is not that he had planned to show that he was thirsty. He did not plan anything. Nothing he would be doing throughout his life was planned. So it was perfectly human, everything from birth to end. Everything was perfectly human. So he was a human being. On the other hand, he was not a human being. So it is a very mysterious thing. And for a common man, looking at him and thinking that he was just another ordinary person, they have no understanding, no clarity. So how to have a better clarity about him? Of course, it would be only possible when the person is, number one, deeply into the research of this subject. The subject is about trying to find out who Sri Ramakrishna was and deeply interested in it. Because we find that during his lifetime, so many sharp and intelligent and capable and educated people, they came, met him at different places, but they are not that interested. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar or Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay or many other things, they were very highly intellectual and sharp people. But they came, they met him, they liked him, they said something about him, and they attended. And there were many other ordinary people surrounding him. We don't need only very highly university educated people only to know or try to know about him. Others also. Not that everybody is equally. So people have to be really, really focused and interested, genuinely interested. And also, they need to have the spiritual insight. If not from the day one, then gradually it has to grow. Without which, to study the life of Sri Ramakrishna and have some amount of a understanding or clarity is just not possible. So, as I have already mentioned, that there have been two major work in this field of finding who Sri Ramakrishna was. And it has to start with this great interest in him, or we might call it a fascination. So the very wonderful way of exploring Sri Ramakrishna, and then perhaps it was done by others also, we don't know. Because unless they have spoken about it and written about it and left for the posterity, we shall know. So perhaps there were others who had a great insight into Sri Ramakrishna but did not say much. Like there are those 16 great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Each one of them were great in their own place. But how much we know how they looked at Sri Ramakrishna and what they have found out about the personality of Sri Ramakrishna, we have no idea. little bit here and there, some conversation, colloquial way, which somebody else might have noted down, like conversation with Latu Maharaj or somebody. If someone has said what he said occasionally about Sri Ramakrishna, we have a glimpse of his view regarding his master and some aspect of it we might find. There have been others who never said anything or we don't know about it. We have not heard much. Except these two great disciples that I mentioned, who have gone into detailed, thorough observation and also noting down to much extent about what they found. So we can talk about the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that how it all happened and what he found. He found means what he found is there, it is published in the form of the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. By the way, the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, as it is available in English form, authored by Swami, the English translation by Swami Nikhilanand-ji Maharaj. That is not the exact translation that was made available in Bengali, 5 volume, the Bengali Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna as it appeared. Before that 5 volume Bengali Gospel, which is considered as the complete Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna that M gave. Before that, he had published already in English some portion of that Gospel from Madras. It had published first. Later on, being requested repeatedly by people none other than Swami Vivekananda and others, that he gradually decided to publish it in Bengali. Before that, occasionally some portions, little bit was being published in some of the magazines in Bengal, in Calcutta. Some of the magazines, occasionally. Some art in the article form. Some days his memoir would be published. Finally, this in the book form, 5 volume came out. They were not in chronological order. But when Swami Nikhilanandji translated it, he decided to put everything in chronologically. And therefore, it is not exactly the translation of the Bengali 5 volume gospel. And afterward, in many different languages, from there it was published, and mostly from the clue taken from Swami Nikhilanandji, and it was not it was chronologically ordered. And there we find, because M had way more resources, but he did not consider it necessary to put into black and white each and every small things. And he was convinced that this was enough. Otherwise, in his own pages of diary that he was maintaining, those were the days when many of the educated people, they had the practice of writing diary. Every night before going to bed, they'll write about their day's experiences. So, being a very scholarly and highly intelligent person and a person of deep thinking, a serious person, M was so serious that occasionally Sri Ramakrishna had to comment like that. You see, everybody is laughing, everybody is dancing, and he is sitting there in one corner, just like that, not even smiling. Even Sri Ramakrishna had to comment like that. that he was very serious. He is not smiling, he's very serious. You see, like Sri Ramakrishna has made this kind of comment in the gospel. You find. So that kind of a person who is deep into his thoughts and everything, he had put in these pages of diary many different observations about Sri Ramakrishna and whatever he have heard, whatever he saw, and his very small opinion, if at all, is there. He had put it on the pages of his diary, but in cryptic form, cryptic language. So not that everything was in clearly readable by anybody, ordinary person. It was only him who will know what he meant about a few words here and there, and the whole thing he might have just put into gist, which afterwards he will go into deep meditation, maybe after several days, even not immediately same day. And he will meditate for hours after reading those few cryptic words, where the gist of the whole day's incident. He was not visiting Sri Ramakrishna every day. He was occasionally visiting, mostly on weekends. He had to come all the way from Calcutta to Dakshineshwar. He was a poor school teacher. School teachers those days were very poorly paid, with a family to support, older parents, wife, children. And he had to think about how he'll go to Dakshineshwar and come back. Paying the fare for any kind of horse-driven buggies available was not possible for him. Cheaper was a boat ride, if at all available, from nearby ghats. But whenever he will be going and spending some time in the company of Sri Ramakrishna, that his heart would be longing for later days, after first meeting, etc., slowly as he grew the intimacy with Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever he will be going and whatever he will be seeing and then whatever he will be noting down, later on, when he has got time, after doing thorough meditation on the day's event, which is known as Leela Dhyana, Leela Dhyana, the entire divine play going on in his heart. He is sitting there in one corner of the room or in Dakshineshwar, and he's watching, observing. And those few words written here and there on his notebook, diary pages, that will be supportive of that. Then he will have a full picture emerging, revisited the whole thing. And that is how he would be eventually writing the gospel. The gospel was not written immediately. It was not written immediately. Occasionally he will be writing something and writing something. And once in a rare while sending it for publication in the local magazines. So this is the thing, how it all occurred. And then it all spanned within a very short period. What this M had seen Sri Ramakrishna and what he understood about Sri Ramakrishna and how he described the personality of Sri Ramakrishna, that also gradually was transformed. It was not that the first day what he saw and till end what he saw, it was one and the same Ramakrishna. It was not. So the personality of Sri Ramakrishna as it was emerging and unfolding in front of his eyes, as he observed it and understood it, and he noted it after noticing them, noted it down in his uh, notebooks or his diary pages, and eventually published it. That is something to read and understand. The personality of Sri Ramakrishna, when we talk about it, then someone of the stature of M or someone in the stature of Saradanandaji, how they looked at the personality of Sri Ramakrishna, that is something valuable. And what M has observed about Sri Ramakrishna and what he talked about Sri Ramakrishna as his personality, he painted the personality of Sri Ramakrishna. It was for a period of little over 4 years. From the very beginning, when he first visited Sri Ramakrishna, the exact date he could not note in his diary pages because at that time Sri Ramakrishna was not so much in focus of his mind uh, those days. He liked everything. He loved Sri Ramakrishna. But it was not that important to put in his diary immediately on the same date. So day is not mentioned there. And the future researchers later on, they believe that it happened on 26th of February 1882. And from that day onward till the end, in August 1886, it was a little over 4 years period that M had met Sri Ramakrishna and noted about Sri Ramakrishna and later on gave to the world this wonderful gift of the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It is only a glimpse of Sri Ramakrishna's life, and that too only a few days here and there when M was meeting him. And even within those days, only that portion which he has put in those books of the gospel, that we have a glimpse of Sri Ramakrishna. And that all began in February 1882. And within a span of 8 days, 26th February 1882 to 6th March 1882, that he met Sri Ramakrishna 4 times. That was the beginning, going to Dakshineshwar. He went there with his brother-in-law named Sidhu. In fact, Sidhu uh, suggested, would you like to go and visit? There is a nearby temple garden, beautiful garden, flowers are there, temple is there, and a wonderful sadhu lives there, very holy man. Would you like to go and visit? So reluctantly he also visited. And that is where it all started. And within that 8 day span, he returns again and again and met Sri Ramakrishna 4 times. That has been mentioned as the beginning, starting of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And here is given this chapter, the name Sri Ramakrishna and the disciple. So we shall talk about it again tomorrow, about the impression that M had about Sri Ramakrishna and which will give us a little more about the personality of Sri Ramakrishna that comes out from there, from his observations, because he was not an ordinary person observing, and he was not just a passing observation. He became serious about it, he paid a whole lot of attention, he meditated on it, and how he looked on it. That is the personality of Sri Ramakrishna. So talk to us. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu